We are kicking off today with Monday Night Raw, and Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins were once again a united front on the show as they refused to back down to the might of the Bloodline. Rollins rechristened The Rock Diarrhea Dwayne to the sounds of Rocky Sucks chants and spoke about The Rock's long-winded promos and childish insults. He claimed that ending the Bloodline is the biggest thing he and Cody can do at WrestleMania 40 in Philly, but fans won't have to wait that long to see the two sides meet. Rhodes and Rollins revealed at the top of the show that they are coming to SmackDown this Friday to confront Rock and Reigns in an energetic promo to start the show. With that said, there was not nearly as much accomplished in this segment compared to previous ones, as the only development was The Rock's new nickname and the SmackDown news. Expect fireworks Friday night on SmackDown though, as all four superstars are in the same arena at the same time for the first time since the WrestleMania kickoff event in Las Vegas. It was during the WrestleMania kickoff event that The Rock slapped Cody Rhodes, making clear to everyone that the Brahma Bull was back in WWE as a heel and part of the Bloodline. That slap was later made into a piece of merchandise based off of the popular Batman slapping Robin meme, but Rhodes now has a t-shirt of his own for the Hollywood megastar. While the new shirt still has The Rock slapping Rhodes, Cody has a speech bubble saying, "Get ready to learn the words to Kingdom," a nod to how the fans sing along to his theme song. Cody clearly won't let this slap or anything The Rock has stop him from trying to finish the story, and to his credit, The Rock hasn't held back on TV or social media. Before making an official challenge for WrestleMania Saturday, The Rock shared a 21-minute long video on his socials in which he mocked Cody, his dog Pharaoh, and Seth Rollins. While he continued his insults on the Blue brand as well, the WWE Universe has been wondering the reason he released a video on social media rather than doing it live on TV. On a recent episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer stated that even though the Great One is a member of TKO's board, he cannot be given a lot of time from a 2-hour show. However, to intensify the rivalry, the things he said were clearly needed, and this was the reason the Hollywood megastar released a video on his social media handles. After a shaky start to his return, The Rock's comeback as a heel has proven to be a hit, and expect plenty more promos from the Great One, both in the ring and online. In the Raw main event, Drew McIntyre dominated against Jey Uso early on and attempted to prove that he wasn't a bitter, sore loser to the WWE Universe. He succeeded for the most part to control the pace for the first 2/3 of the match, but the ever-resilient Jey was able to fire off a comeback later in the show. That was until Jimmy appeared and distracted his twin yet again, allowing the Scottish Warrior to score the win with a Claymore. Just prior to the finish, Cody Rhodes hit ringside to fend off Solo Sikoa, and post-match, Rollins joined him, blowing past his WrestleMania challenger as if he didn't even exist. Rollins was part of the force chasing Jimmy out of the ring, but ate a Claymore by McIntyre, who again implored the champion to rethink his vendetta against the Bloodline to end the show. The match was good, if not a bit long, but the closing moments of the show were red hot, thus elevating the segment of the broadcast. We had a continuation of the Usos' sibling rivalry, as well as the latest between Rhodes, Rollins, and the Bloodline, not to mention McIntyre's quest to save WrestleMania. In an interesting note, Michael Cole on commentary said that McIntyre vs. Rollins will be one of the co-main events of the Sunday portion of WrestleMania, leaving Saturday free for another match. This may have been a slip of the tongue, but it only seemed to confirm that the tag match that was teased on SmackDown will indeed be made official and close out WrestleMania Saturday. McIntyre is yet to get his world title win in front of a live crowd and hopes WrestleMania will be his time, and if Raw is any indication, he has the number of the World Heavyweight Champion. On April 5th, WWE will host its annual Hall of Fame ceremony, and given that this will take place in Philadelphia, it's fitting that the first inductee has a rich history in the city. As first reported by the Associated Press, Paul Heyman has been confirmed as the first inductee into the Hall of Fame class of 2024 in recognition of his decades of success. Heyman's name is of course tied to Philly due to his years of running ECW, but his career in wrestling goes back to the 1970s when he was selling photos at WWF shows in New York. Heyman would also spend time in WCW managing the Dangerous Alliance, and today can be found serving as the special counsel to Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. In a tweet, WWE CCO Triple H listed some of Heyman's monikers and is pleased he'll soon be known as a Hall of Famer, and said Paul will have plenty to say next month in Philly. Sitting down with the New York Post, Heyman reflected on his career and made clear that despite his impending induction, this shouldn't be taken as a sign of his retirement. He said, "It's taken me all these decades to figure this business out and the art of presentation to an audience, so while I hate to use the old cliche of, you ain't seen nothing yet, and I'm just getting started, you ain't seen nothing yet, and I'm just getting started. I don't want a Lifetime Achievement Award when I'm not done achieving things. I still have a lot of other work I want to do in this industry. I want to be involved in the first main event of WrestleMania in Havana, or go to the moon, or on Mars when Elon Musk colonizes it. These are things that are going to happen in the future, and I desperately want to be a part of it." Heyman will be kept plenty busy over WrestleMania week, as in addition to the Hall of Fame, he will be alongside the Bloodline for their matches on the premium live event card. Paul Heyman's career so far makes him Hall of Fame material, and he still has plenty left in the tank, and fans will get to hear all about it on April 5th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The intense rivalry between Becky Lynch and Nia Jax wrote another chapter in a competitive match that saw the Irresistible Force attempt to halt the man's WrestleMania momentum. As Pat McAfee explained, momentum is a real thing even if some stats nerd says it's not, acknowledging that Lynch has the greater momentum despite previously losing to Jax. Jax delivered a hell of a leg drop from the middle rope on Lynch, with the 2024 Women's Elimination Chamber match winner kicked out at 2. This may be the best version of Jax we've ever seen. She's as motivated as ever, and her chemistry with just about every opponent she's worked with has been undeniable. This was headed towards being a strong match before the finish, and her performance is a big reason why, but the finish was not what anyone expected. Instead of a clear winner, Liv Morgan made her presence felt, drawing a DQ by attacking Jax, and from there, she confronted Lynch, and the two appeared ready to throw down. This was before Jax leveled both and stood tall to close out the segment, and while the money match this April is Lynch versus Rhea Ripley, it's hard to ignore WWE's unique booking. WWE is keeping Liv Morgan and Nia Jax in this scene for a reason, and a backstage encounter between Lynch and Morgan after the match appears to have led to a match on next week's Raw. That match is almost certainly going to see some more interference, and we'll have to wonder if a 4-way title match at WrestleMania is what we'll see this April in Philly. In the closing moments of the segment, Jax was making her way to the back and, in an interaction with a fan, stole the man's hat before tossing it to another part of the crowd. While this shocked fans, it's since been learned that this wasn't a sign of frustration from Jax, but instead, the fan in question is a close friend of the Raw superstar. Jax had previously asked WWE's permission to do the spot, and the company clearly agreed, and Jax's friend was said to be happy to help the Irresistible Force get some extra heat on TV. Before the next match, Raw GM Adam Pearce announced that a Gauntlet match will take place next week, with the winner earning an Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania 40. Superstars vying for the opportunity include Sami Zayn, Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bronson Reed, JD McDonough, and Chad Gable in a star-studded cast of potential challengers. A backstage interview with Zayn descended into a challenge from the underdog for a match with Ivar later in the show, as Zayn wants to build momentum ahead of next week's Gauntlet match. Up next, Andrade made his return to the ring since his surprise appearance in the Men's Royal Rumble match, and this bout saw him square off with Apollo Crews. In what amounted to an extended showcase for El Idolo, the second-generation star earned the win with La Sombra, a modified hammerlock DDT. There was not much substance to the match, as Crews has been a non-factor on Monday nights for months, but it did get Andrade in front of fans with a strong win, so there's that. WWE botched Andrade's return match by promoting it as his debut on Raw, when his actual Raw debut was 1,785 days earlier on the April 15, 2019 episode of the Red Brand. That 2019 match saw Andrade best Finn Balor, and interestingly, Andrade had a brief interaction with the Judgment Day's Dominik Mysterio, the second such interaction in recent weeks. More interesting than any extended squash match is in what manner the mutual respect between him and Mysterio ultimately manifests itself in the near future. Undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions Finn Balor and Damian Priest of the Judgment Day continued their recent streak of success with a win over Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. This was a fun, quality match on Raw, with Imperium isolating Balor for a large portion of the bout, while commentary put over Balor's championship resume on more than one occasion. Could there be a conscious effort to heat him up amid expectations that there may be a split incoming for the Judgment Day? These commentary lines certainly made it seem possible. Baszler eventually made the hot tag to Priest, with the Archer of Infamy excelling as the fiery de facto babyface and tore through Kaiser and Vinci before putting the Italian down for the win. Priest showed great babyface fire in the closing of the match and had fans solidly behind the tag team champions in the battle of heel teams, which, like Baszler, could be a sign of bigger things. Kaiser appeared to have possibly injured his foot late in the match, clutching it after coming down awkwardly off the apron. Nevertheless, this was a well-worked match that saw the champions score a rare clean victory and continue their reign as champions, and there was no sign of Miz or R-Truth. This allowed the champions to celebrate their win without hijinks ensuing, but we have to wonder what Awesome Truth will do next as we get closer to WrestleMania. In the aforementioned match, Sami Zayn earned another quality victory on his road to WrestleMania 40 by besting Ivar in a bout that highlighted both men. It helped remind fans of the underrated singles run the Viking Raider has been on over the last 6 months, and Ivar does not nearly get the credit that he's earned for his solo work. The Viking has shown he's capable of working matches with opponents of varying backgrounds and was able to cut off a haluva kick by Zayn with a perfectly executed heel kick. Zayn delivered an exploder into the corner, but Ivar answered, again cutting off the haluva kick with a seated senton out of the corner. Cole's commitment to Valhalla and her antler shtick is commendable. The manager joined him at commentary and placed her antlers on his head. Post-match, Zayn was attacked by Big Bronson Reed, who delivered the tsunami, sending a message to the rest of the competitors in next week's Gauntlet match for a shot at Gunther. Speaking of the Austrian, Chad Gable interrupted an interview between Gunther and Kathy Kelly to declare that he will win next week and vowed to dethrone the champion this April. Gable said that by beating Gunther at WrestleMania, he will put a smile on his daughter's face, and this match next week will make Raw a must-see show. Add to that the wealth of talent involved, and we could very well have a candidate for WWE TV Match of the Year, in addition to a WrestleMania match when all is said and done. We've got news about Sting now, and when it was confirmed that his final wrestling match would be against the Young Bucks, there was a ton of talk about if this was the right call. Many fans believed Sting's last match should have been a singles match, with the more cynical of fans accusing the Bucks of forcing themselves on a story they didn't need to be in. Speaking with Sports Illustrated, Sting made it clear that he made the decision to face Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, adding that he didn't want this last hurrah with anyone else. The Icon dismissed any speculation or rumors surrounding the AEW EVPs and reiterated his respect for the pair, saying that he can't find any flaws from them in the ring. Sting's retirement was certainly a massive deal, so much so that it was referenced on this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. During the Gunther vs. Dominik Mysterio match, Michael Cole mentioned Sting's retirement from wrestling and said thanks for the memories to the Icon. This is a sign as to just how much respect the wrestling world has for Sting, and it's clear Sting has a lot of respect for others, especially his final ever opponents, the Young Bucks. It's been just over a month since Vince McMahon retired from WWE for the second time, and unlike his previous departure, it seems McMahon can't strong-arm his way back in. That's because unlike 2022, McMahon would now have to deal with TKO Group Holdings, and his latest move has been another sign that his exit is for good. According to a recent filing, McMahon sold 5,350,000 shares of his TKO stock, amounting to a staggering $412 million, leaving him 15 million shares, roughly 9% of all TKO stock. This latest development comes amid ongoing legal scrutiny surrounding McMahon, with federal authorities investigating the allegations against him in Janelle Grant's shocking lawsuit. McMahon hardly needed an extra $412 million, but he has it now, in what many are taking as another sign that he is truly out of the wrestling business for good. If you've been watching AEW as of late, you'll have noticed that Mike Santana, formerly Just Santana, has been missing from TV, and now we have the reason why. Rather than an injury as some speculated, Fightful Select has confirmed that Santana is gone from AEW entirely, which comes after he was removed from their roster page. Santana had been a fixture of AEW since 2019 and had been a founding member of the Inner Circle when that faction first came together in October of that same year. In 2022, Santana suffered a significant injury during the Blood and Guts match that would see him sidelined for some time until his return to action at All In inside Wembley Stadium last year. Outside of AEW, Santana wrestles for several companies and is the reigning House of Glory World Champion, and we'll have to see what's next for the AEW veteran now that he's gone. Back to Raw, and on the heels of last week's face-off, Dominik Mysterio stepped up against Intercontinental Champion Gunther, and it went as well as to be expected for Dirty Dom. Gunther overwhelmed the self-professed hardened criminal with his arsenal of strikes, including chopping the air out of the Judgment Day member. Mysterio was able to mount something of a comeback and was quite impressive in the de facto babyface role, though he's so hated that fans didn't react as strongly as they could have. Despite his efforts to fight from underneath, Gunther cut him down and delivered a powerbomb before making Mysterio tap to the Boston Crab. As a one-off showdown between heels, this was executed well and added a little bit of heat to the Judgment Day vs. Imperium feud teased the week prior. It also showcased the growth and evolution of Mysterio, something the young competitor still does not get enough credit for, despite showing plenty of both since his in-ring debut in 2020. Shayna Baszler and Zoey Stark inched one step closer to a shot at the women's tag team titles when they defeated Katana Chance and Kayden Carter in a competitive, albeit short, match. The former champions appeared to have the win in hand until Baszler broke up the pin, and from there, the heels earned a pivotal win for their championship aspirations. Damage Control joined Michael Cole and Pat McAfee at the commentary position, getting a close look at potential challengers to their women's tag team championship at WrestleMania 40. The faction entered the ring and instead of WrestleMania, said that the title match will happen next week on Raw after Asuka and Kairi Sane retain on tomorrow's NXT Roadblock show. Baszler and Stark vs. Asuka and Sane is a potential show stealer if given enough time, but it's a downer that there's little to no expectation that the challengers will win the gold next week. Next week, Mercedes Moné is expected to make her official AEW debut as part of the Big Business episode of Dynamite, but the boss has yet to confirm those reports herself. What Moné did do this week, however, was tease her arrival, saying she'd handled all of her big business in Japan and said she'd see you again this summer. Moné may have more work lined up in Japan in a few months from now, but her AEW arrival is expected to happen in 8 days in what'll be a huge moment for herself and for AEW. As we know, it was at AEW Revolution that Sting wrestled his last match, but fans have been left wondering what's next for the legendary wrestler. While speaking during the post-AEW Revolution media scrum, Sting was asked about his future plans in AEW following his retirement and shared what he might and what he won't do. Tony has mentioned me staying on board in some form or fashion. We haven't really worked anything out there yet, but I'm sure we'll have some kind of conversation, and I'm saying maybe, we'll see what happens. I have no interest in being a manager or anything like that or an agent. I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what I can offer. With decades in the industry to his name, Sting would be an exceptional asset behind the scenes, possibly as a coach or producer for the young AEW talent. Whatever Sting has in store, it seemingly won't see him don his iconic face paint and coat. And what do you think Sting should do next in AEW? Let us know in the comments section below. And we're ending with AEW, as Warner Bros. Discovery has served as the home of the shows for years, but the current deal between the two sides will expire on December 31st of this year. While speaking at the post-Revolution scrum, Tony Khan was optimistic about the future, adding that it's a great time for his company and for Warner Bros. Discovery. AEW has some big plans lined up that'll be broadcast on Warner Bros. Discovery outlets, but for the time being, it doesn't appear that Kenny Omega will be part of them. Despite Omega's inclusion in the advertising for upcoming shows in Canada starting on March 16th, Khan cautioned against assuming Omega would be cleared to compete by then. Khan was optimistic for Omega's eventual return, but said it wouldn't be fair to create the expectation that the cleaner will be cleared and in ring condition in just 11 days. He added, "I'm very optimistic Kenny will be coming back, but I don't know the exact date. I think that's an aggressive timetable. Kenny is one of AEW's great stars, and we can't wait to have him back as soon as possible. I don't think it would be fair to create the expectation he would be cleared by then, though." The exact date of Omega's return to the ring remains unknown, as he was originally scheduled to wrestle at AEW World's End before his hospitalization and diagnosis of diverticulitis. Plans for the former AEW World Champion have since been put on hold indefinitely, and while fans shouldn't expect his return in Canada, we are wishing him a full and speedy recovery.